China said they would end Boeing and Airbus's duopoly by 2025. It is now 2026. The C919 has exactly 0 orders outside China. Technically, Brunei ordered 15 aircraft, but they have received none. $20 billion have been spent, 17 years of development, and the only customers are airlines the Chinese government literally owns. But here's the problem. Boeing should still be terrified. And to understand why, you need to know about a man named Yanjun Xu. Xu was a deputy division director in China's Ministry of State Security, their version of the CIA. For years, his job was simple: fly Western aviation engineers to China, wine and dine them, and pay them to give presentations at universities. Then ask them to betray their employers. His target was GE Aviation, specifically their composite aircraft engine fan. Technology so advanced that no other company on Earth has replicated it. Technology worth, according to GE, somewhere between $65 million and $150 million. In April 2018, Xu flew to Belgium. He thought he was meeting a GE engineer who would hand over proprietary data. Instead, Belgian police and FBI agents were waiting. In 2022, a federal jury convicted him of economic espionage, trade secret theft, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. But here's what makes this story matter for the C919. Xu wasn't a rogue agent. He was part of a coordinated campaign. In 2018, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted 10 Chinese nationals for stealing technology from 13 aerospace companies. All of them were partners with COMAC, the company building the C919. The aircraft China built to destroy Boeing was constructed, in part, with stolen American technology. And yet, it still does not work. Let me explain. COMAC was created in 2008 with one mission: build a narrow-body jet to compete with the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320. The logic made sense. China was becoming the world's largest aviation market. Boeing projects Chinese airlines will need 8,560 new aircraft by 2042. That's $1.4 trillion in planes. And nearly all of that money was flowing to 2 companies, one American, one European. So China did what China does. They threw money at the problem. $7 billion in seed capital, somewhere between $49 and $72 billion in government subsidies over the next decade. They partnered with Western suppliers. CFM International would provide engines. Honeywell would provide avionics. Collins Aerospace would provide flight systems. The plan was to learn from these partners, build the aircraft, then gradually replace foreign components with Chinese ones. First flight was scheduled for 2014. Commercial service by 2016. Neither happened. The first C919 flew in May 2017. It was 3 years late. And when aviation analysts examined what COMAC had actually built, they found something embarrassing. It was not a Chinese aircraft. It was a Chinese airframe wrapped around Western technology. The engines, American. The avionics, American. The flight controls, European. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, American firms supply roughly 60% of the C919's components. Europe supplies another third. COMAC had not built a Boeing killer. They had built a Boeing customer. But the Chinese government doesn't give up easily. In May 2023, the C919 finally entered commercial service. China Eastern Airlines flight MU9191 from Shanghai to Beijing with 130 passengers. State media celebrated. The duopoly was finally under threat. Then, reality set in. In 2024, COMAC delivered 13 aircraft. They had promised 30. In early 2025, they raised their target to 75. Ambitious, bold. By September, they had delivered 5. They quietly cut the target to 25. By December, they hit 13, the exact same number as the year before. For context, Airbus delivers more than 40 A320 family aircraft every month. Boeing, despite all their problems, delivers more than 20 737s. COMAC delivers 1. And then came the moment that exposed everything. In May 2025, the United States suspended export licenses for CFM engines. The trade war had escalated. America decided to squeeze. At COMAC's Shanghai factory, partially completed aircraft sat on the assembly line, waiting for engines that were not coming. Production stopped. The ban lasted 2 months. By August, exports resumed. But the lesson was clear. The C919 is not a Chinese aircraft. It is a Western aircraft that China assembles, and the West can turn off the tap whenever it wants. This is why the C919 has no international customers. Without certification from the FAA or European aviation authorities, no airline outside China's political orbit can fly it. COMAC is hoping for European certification by 2028, maybe 2029, maybe later. And even if they get it, who's buying? An aircraft built by a company linked to industrial espionage. An aircraft that could not meet a single production target. An aircraft that can be grounded by American export controls. The C919 has failed by every Western metric. Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun called concerns about COMAC a silly prospect. He said they have a long while before they are a real threat. He is right. But here is where the story gets interesting. Airbus CEO Guillaume Faury said something very different. He warned that China could create a triopoly that would reshape global aviation. He is also right. And understanding how both statements can be true reveals the hidden logic behind China's entire strategy. The C919 does not need to succeed internationally. It does not need to match Boeing's quality. It does not need European certification. It does not even need to be profitable. It just needs to exist. Here is why. Boeing forecasts that Chinese airlines will need 6,720 new single-aisle aircraft by 2043. Aviation analytics firm Cirium estimates COMAC could capture 25% of those orders. Do the math. 25% of 6,720 aircraft is roughly 1,680 planes. That's 1,680 Boeing 737s that will never be ordered. 1,680 Airbus A320s that will never be sold. Tens of billions of dollars gone. And here's the mechanism that makes it work. When China Eastern, Air China, and China Southern each ordered 100 C919s, they were not making commercial decisions. They were following government directives. These are state-owned airlines buying from a state-owned manufacturer. The price does not matter. The delivery timeline does not matter. Even reliability, to some extent, does not matter. What matters is that every C919 delivered is one less Western aircraft purchased. If you have been finding this useful, consider subscribing. We break down the business strategy behind the aircraft industry, the decisions that make billions, and the ones that lose them. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, but China is still dependent on American engines. That is their weakness. You are right. For now. The Aero Engine Corporation of China has been developing an indigenous engine called the CJ1000A since 2009. The first engine was assembled in 2017. Testing has been ongoing for years. Is it as good as the CFM LEAP? Almost certainly not. Does it matter? No. An aircraft with Chinese engines is an aircraft that cannot be grounded by Washington. That is the entire point. The CJ1000A is expected to enter serial production around 2030. When it does, the C919 becomes something it currently is not: truly independent. The consequences of this strategy are already visible. In 2021, China's three largest airlines ordered 300 aircraft, all from Airbus, 0 from Boeing. That was not a market decision. That was geopolitical punishment. China was the first country to ground the 737 MAX after 2 crashes killed 346 people. China was the last to let it fly again. The MAX did not return to Chinese skies until January 2023. By then, Boeing had lost the market. Airbus sees what is coming. That is why they are building a second assembly line in Tianjin. If you cannot beat the subsidies, join them. Boeing faces a harder path. Their market share in China has collapsed. The MAX crisis destroyed trust. Geopolitical tensions make recovery nearly impossible. And every year, COMAC gets a little better, a little more independent, a little more capable of absorbing orders that used to go to Seattle. So what is the takeaway here? I am curious what you think, actually. Should Boeing be worried about COMAC? Or is this just another government boondoggle that will underperform forever? Let me know in the comments. Here is my view. The C919 is not a good aircraft. It is not competitive internationally. It probably never will be. But it was never designed to compete internationally. It was designed to do one thing: prevent China from sending its aviation dollars to the West. And by that standard, it is working. Every aircraft COMAC delivers is one less Boeing or Airbus sells. Every year that China improves its domestic capabilities is a year closer to true independence. The question is not whether China will eventually dominate its own aviation market. It will. The question is whether Boeing and Airbus will still matter when they do. China will account for 1/5 of all aircraft demand through 2042. Being locked out of that market is not an inconvenience. It is an existential threat. That is why a plane nobody outside China wants should still keep Boeing executives awake at night. If you want to understand how Boeing got into this position, check out our video on the 737 MAX. The decisions that created that crisis are still shaping the industry today. Thanks for watching.